I'm Seamless, and today I want to talk to you about monitors. I've gotten a lot of questions, and everyone always asks, just all the time, constantly, about like what monitors are good, what kind of monitors should I get, how much should I be spending on monitors, like what whatever good stuff and that kind of thing. And it's certainly like a perfectly legitimate thing to be asking about because it's like your speakers, how good your speakers are, obviously will impact how good you hear things, which will impact how good you can do stuff. So that's perfectly sensible to kind of care about. However, there is somewhat a ceiling of the value a monitor is going to have for you, like after a certain price point. Because there are certainly super kick-ass monitors, really like finely tuned, low, like no, like low, super low. They're all low noise now, but like flat response, that kind of thing. Like this three-way, four-way crossovers, like sub and whatever, like all sorts of important factors that make them all really good. That will be 100% lost on you if your room isn't also amazing. And so like my monitors are used KRK ST8s. I don't even make them anymore, but they're passive because they're passive monitors. Like they don't really care, but like they were $200 when I got them. I don't even remember what they were new. Not much more than that, to be honest. But they're basically like KRK like Rocket 8s. They're 8-inch main cone tweeter, whatever. Like those are the monitors I've been using, and they're fine, perfectly fine. And the reason, so like what's more important than your monitors is sort of how you set them up and what your room is doing, that kind of thing. Really, what you want to look for in as much as possible, all that you got is symmetry. You want to make sure that you set up your monitors. So you set up, you can't, whatever. I probably should be showing this to you with like another angle, but you set up your monitors so that they're a particular distance away from yourself, but they're the same distance, and whatever distance they are from your head, which is like in listening position, and you want your monitors to be at like head level, aiming at your face. You want them aiming at your face, but you want the distance from your face to the speaker to be the same distance as from the speaker to the other speaker. They may make a nice equilateral triangle. You want it to be dead center, and you want yourself to be in whatever room, whatever wall you're on. You want to be dead center in that as well, because you want to make sure that the reflections coming back from you on either side, like that's coming from a speaker, interacting with this bullshit, coming with a speaker and interacting with that bullshit, you want it to be as similar as possible. You might be thinking to yourself, just because you can see what's going on behind me, that doesn't necessarily the case in here, but it's not like egregiously awful. It's not as if like, because being in the center, if I were like to like left or right a little bit, then like interacting with the wall would mean that one side hits it earlier than the other, which means it'll come back to me and like I'll actually be leaning one way or the other. And you might compensate for that by centering some stuff in a particular way that when you listen to it in any other system, the center is not there anymore. It's like to the left a little bit because you're to the left a little bit, or to the right, whatever that comes across as, that kind of crap. That's why you want to make sure that you're dead center or whatever. And like the sound foam stuff is good to like deal with feedback, and also mostly feedback, like, and not necessarily just feedback in the sense of like it rings and you hear like a particular tone or whatever, but like constructive interference where a particular tone or a particular note is accentuated in a room. It is going to happen no matter what, because if you have any kind of like parallel walls, that whatever wavelengths can resonate in between those are going to do so, which means that you're going to get like a big EQ bump like at whatever that particular range of frequency is, and that's going to mean that like you're going to hear as if there's that bump in there, and then you're going to compensate for that by mixing stuff down in that particular area without realizing it, and then you're going to hear that as being not a thing you should have done on other systems. So more so than monitors, you really want to get used to what your room does. And obviously making big sweeping changes to turn your room into something amazing isn't really possible for most people, especially if they're the touted bedroom producer. You can work with what you've got. They just make sure like as possible, as much as you can, that everything is symmetrical. And then most cases, whatever monitors you're going to use are going to be fine. They're all going to be different. They're all going to be, somewhat special one way or the other, and largely you get what you pay for in terms of expense. If it's more expensive, it usually is better, and reviews are nice to help you with that kind of stuff, but the basic science of the stuff is that you want to square away your environmental like positioning before you even talk about the kind of hardware you want to get. And so like if you do have like a really nice like no parallel walls, like the angled tops so that they reflect, like there's a whole bunch of special stuff you could do to treat a room to like build a room to be really great, like a really great listening room, so that you can do like high end like super tight mastering work, and then you get like matching super amazing monitors. But if you got those super amazing monitors and you stuck it like in my bedroom upstairs, they wouldn't. That's like a huge waste of money, because they would perform about as well as like my $200 KRK SD8s. That's the sort of thing you want to be careful about. And like my KRK ST8s are gonna color my stuff in a particular way anyway, but all environments and speakers are gonna, no matter what. Headphones, monitors, a room, it's all gonna contribute to coloring the sound in some way or another. It is completely impossible to get like a perfectly flat anything anywhere at any time, especially just for the fact that your head can't be, you're not gonna like lock your head in the same place like no matter what you're doing, and like you're just not gonna move ever. That's not something you're gonna do. So you're gonna get some kind of phasing and motion and whatever. And you gotta be familiar with how your system sounds and how it affects what you like. And that whole thing I've actually talked about before. I made a video called in the Production Basics series about master compensation EQ, where you're essentially you're building an equalizer to conform to what your room does to stuff, so that when you work on things, it'll still sound like the way you want it to sound like. And really, all that's about is referencing. Just reference stuff you like, listen to how it sounds, and then target that as where you want to go with your mix. Don't try and make your mix sound better or worse. Just that's your target. And like pay attention to stuff like how loud the bass feels or sounds, how loud the highs. Mostly, I mean, you basically particular areas of frequencies, how it responds, how everything is colored. A good example of what how important this is that like my system, I don't have a subwoofer, and 8-inch cones are nice and all, but like they don't have wonderful bass response, like super actual bass. So if I were to have in my song what I thought was a comfortable amount of bass, it would be way too much bass because I'm overcompensating for the lack of bass in my system. And if I were to reference a song that I thought had a lot of bass and felt really good, and I really pay attention to how like the bass actually feels kind of like rolled off on my system, then that's how I would mix my stuff to feel that way, because I am worried about having too much bass and ruining my headroom and that kind of crap. So that's sort of what that's useful for. Sort of the old school solution to this is to listen to your stuff in as many systems as possible to get a well-rounded experience with whatever your mixes are doing. And you can still do that, but if you like have a song that you know sounds good on every system you've ever heard it on, then just use that as a reference for whatever target genre you're working with, and that's about as good, honestly, as listening to other systems. With slight nuances about stuff you would hear, which of course depends also on your system. I used to mix on like hi-fi stereo speakers, which is the dumbest thing in the world, with like post EQs applied and like processing applied to it from the stereo system itself. But if you're familiar enough with what it does and you get used to it, and like really, I also really recommend that like you kind of work on one system. Like for all the work I've ever done about like making music and producing music and sound designing and all the stuff that I've ever done, as like for the last 5-ish years, has been on this one system. So I don't even I've never had to do the master compensator EQ because I've just been used to it forever. And if I got a new system, that I would probably have to do that, because I'd have to get familiar with how it works, how it sounds, that kind of thing. You basically got to calibrate your head to like be in the same space, and you can do that by listening to references, and then that's like your baseline now. That's what you're used to using. And like all of this stuff is stuff that you can do to improve whatever system you have now versus getting newer and better monitors. That can help in some particular ways, but only if like you've got like criminally shitty systems now. But for the most part, you probably don't. Yeah, I hope any of that made sense. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.